Have you seen the backlash for this Rings of Power show? It's insane. Like, it hasn't even come out yet, and it's getting ratioed to hell on YouTube, and like the comments are, what? They're unbelievable. Like this goes on for like I don't know how long. These comments, they're all troll comments, basically. I put one in somewhere. Just because we all the real Tolkien fans like feel the same way about the show. Like it should not be happening. At least not like this. Amazon's just taken the hundred and so pages of appendices and raped them basically. This video will probably get taken down for me saying that word, but basically, yeah, they're making up a lot and they're inventing new characters. Like we've seen a few of them in the promos, and they're changing pre-existing characters like to fit their own view of the world. Like we got Galadriel, just for an example, Galadriel as a warrior now, like she never was in the books. And you'll see, I'm going to get into this article that actually talks about that after we watch this little trailer, the newest trailer. I'm assuming, yeah, this will be the last one because it's just a few days before it comes out. But yeah, hopefully this doesn't get my video taken down.
My brother gave his life hunting the enemy.
So that confirms my
His
theory that
task
was her
is
brother
now
in
mine.
those promos. Her brothers are the ones who actually went to war and got killed.
Stand
She
with
never
me.
did.
Ours was no
Like,
chance.
this is all bullshit.
Not fate.
Durin,
Nor destiny.
the second company.
Ours was the work of something greater.
And that's Hallbrand, who it looks like she rescues because I saw a picture of her like taking him out the water. And then that elf thing.
Each of us.
I have to go back.
Everyone.
Well, after I watch through it.
Must decide who.
But yeah, all this is.
We shall
Okay, that was
be.
Isildur on the ship. This is. Everybody's calling him Don Lemon. He looks like
Whatever it was you
the
did,
elf of color.
be free of it.
One day this will be your kingdom.
And what I'm wondering what this music
Choose
is
not
because
the
this
path
does
of
not sound
fear,
like, Middle Earth
but
to
that
me.
of
This
faith.
music sounds like something from CW.
One thing we can do, better than any creature in all Middle Earth, we stay true to each other with our hearts even bigger in our feet.
What is that line? Everybody's asking like, what does that mean? Our hearts are bigger than our feet. Okay, that makes
Survive
sense.
this. You and I.
Forbidden.
Commander! Wait! No! We keep moving!
Leave him.
Why do you keep fighting?
There is a tempest in me!
You have fought long enough, Galadriel. Put up your sword.
With the black elf in chains, of course. Everybody's pointing that out.
Without it,
Any
what am
more
I
on
to
the
be?
Without my sword, what am I to be? She's Galadriel. We know what she is without a fucking sword. We've seen her. And like the fandom has such tremendous respect for her without her having wielded a sword like ever. Why are you doing this now? You see some of the comments like when Galadriel pulled out her lightsaber and said Wakanda forever, sent shivers up my spine. You can go through and read all these, man. It's freaking it's a trip. Like, for real. But one thing I wanted to touch on. Yeah. Amazon will declare the Rings of Power a victory regardless of actual viewership. And you'll see a lot of studios doing this now. It's like they'll come out and say, well, they'll try to cover their tracks. Like, it's gotten twice as many views as this show. They said that with She-Hulk. It just came out. The second episode came out. They're saying it's gotten like twice as many views as Miss Marvel, but Miss Marvel is the lowest viewed show on Disney Plus, the lowest viewed Marvel show on Disney Plus. So they're like making up these narratives like, oh, it's successful. No, it's not really. When you take into account all the other shows, like relatively speaking, it's not successful. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, it was doing well up until the end. Like, it went downhill. A new report claims that Amazon Studios and Prime Video will declare their upcoming series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, a victory regardless of actual viewership. Business Insider claims to have spoken to a number of anonymous insiders at Amazon Studios, explaining what success for the series, which is estimated to have cost upwards of $1 billion for the first season, looks like. Yeah, it's like $50 million an episode, something like that. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the highest budget of TV series has ever gotten, higher than Game of Thrones even. In the report, I think Game of Thrones was like 10 million an episode, something like that. In the report, writers Elaine Lowe, Eugene Kim, and Allison Browser assert word from those who've seen episodes is positive. Of course it will be, because those people were paid off. Like, they get free tickets to go in to see these these episodes, so of course they're going to speak positively. They want to keep the access that they have. And several industry insiders predicted to Insider that Amazon will find a way, regardless of actual viewership, to sound the trumpets of victory. Of course they will, because they want people to keep coming back. They got 4 more seasons of this planned out. It's supposed to be a 5-season show. One anonymous insider, described as a former senior Amazon Studios executive, also told them the reason why it's going to succeed is because the executives at Amazon need it to succeed. Of course they do, because this is their, like, how much did they pay for this shit? This is like their, if they had Star Wars, this would be equivalent to that, basically. This is like the most popular book series. Like, it's sold even more than Harry Potter. It's sold like only second to the Bible, basically. If it doesn't succeed, there's going to be a big question from Amazon's chief executive officer, Andy Jassy, and the board. This alleged executive added, if we can't take this piece of IP and make it successful, why is Amazon Studios even here? It has to succeed. There's no option. Yeah. Yeah, that's why you can tell they're fucking scared right now. They're trying to call all the fans racist because they're complaining that there's black people in this now, but there never was black people in this. And you'll see from another article that this is true. It's not a race thing per se. It's an English thing. It's a European thing. Europe was like this in the old days, and that's what Tolkien based this whole world off of. Another insider indicated that the show has to outperform other Amazon Studios and Prime Video offerings, telling the outlet, if it's not the highest performing thing Amazon has ever done, it's a failure. Yeah, we'll see. I think The Boys has done pretty well for them. I actually enjoyed Carnival Row. I don't know how well it did. I'm still waiting on the next season. And I'm trying to think what other successes Amazon has had. Wheel of Time, I think they wanted that to do really well, and it like the fan base just did not take to it because they deviated so much from the lore. Which is this? What's this doing? What this is doing, man? I mean, the first episode might be bonkers, but then after that, it's probably gonna fall off. This insider added the caveat, but the outside world may not ever know. Yeah, they never tell us the numbers. Like, if they were proud of their numbers, they'd tell us. This same insider noted that people's jobs could be on the line if the series does not perform well, explaining to Business Insider. Well, people's jobs are always on the line. I think Amazon Studios chief Jennifer Psaki's position there is very, very secure, but all the senior leaders are probably not sleeping well right now. Probably not. It's a high stakes moment for them, the insider added. This second insider also warned that the entertainment landscape overall is perilous. We've already been living in this distorted entertainment environment where everybody's a winner and nobody makes money. Yeah, especially during the pandemic. Like they started bleeding money. Like Disney's still doing well because they have the theme parks. That makes up like 60% of their revenue. But yeah, most of these entertainment giants are suffering right now. Amazon still has Prime, which, gives people the free shipping and all that shit. So a lot of people still have that. So they'll be fine. Jeff Bezos is still like one of the richest people, isn't he? I mean, Bill Gates is the richest, but Bill Gates. Yeah. Amazon and Apple are not independently financially accountable. Disney Plus is a loss leader. See, this is what I'm saying. Peacock is a loss leader. Still think that's a stupid name for a streaming service. Paramount Plus is a loss leader. That's happening without everyone making a bunch of Lord of the Rings, and they're already feeling the strain. Well, see, Paramount Plus kind of shot themselves in the foot with that Halo series. Like, they could have done way better than that. That could have been a slam dunk. I don't think anybody can sustain a heartbeat where Lord of the Rings or House of the Dragon are the new normal. This insider further asserted. There's no business in that. I saw the first episode of House of the Dragon, and I'm pretty interested in it. I'm hoping it doesn't fall off a cliff. The claim that Amazon Studios will declare victory whether or not it actually isn't too hard to believe. Warner Media appeared to do the same with the premiere for House of the Dragon. The studio claimed that the debut episode was watched by a little less than 10 million people, 9.986 million viewers to be exact, and touted it as the largest audience for any new original series in the history of HBO. See, they're still not doing as good as Yellowstone on Paramount. That made I got like 13 million people to watch, 14, something like that. But that's been accruing over a few years. We'll see if House of the Dragons keeps this up. The outlet previously reported that the series finale of Game of Thrones brought in 13.613 million viewers, and the entire final season averaged 11.992 million viewers. So the entire final season. So people, I guess, were checking out by like season 7. This thing was huge. I remember like everybody was talking about this show. And then by the time season 8 came out, like a lot of people had gotten turned off. And yeah, the ending, we all know how that went. Yeah. More stuff about House of the Dragon. Ads interrupting. Warner Media isn't the only one who continues to try and tout success, even though they might be marginal or even bad performance. See, this is what I'm saying. The Walt Disney Company touted their premiere viewership numbers for Obi-Wan Kenobi, only to see them fall off a cliff by the time the 6th and final episode debuted. Yeah, because they completely destroyed his character. They destroyed Leia too, and even the Beru and Uncle Owen. Funnily enough, and Bail Organa. Like you watch that series and I'm sure if you know these characters, you're thinking they would not do this. This, and a lot of this does not make sense. He was on social media bragging about the viewership, which wasn't that great at all. Yeah, see, the 860 million, that's in minutes viewed. That's what they like to brag about. That's the Nielsen numbers. Yeah, it wasn't even on Nielsen's top 10 list for streaming series. See, they're just going. They're not going on. How many people view this. They go on the minutes viewed. Yeah, it's quite possible that Amazon Studios and Prime Video will make similar claims. It's hard to imagine the series not topping the charts when it premieres on September 2nd. That's the anniversary of Tolkien's death, by the way. It does have the Lord of the Rings name attached to it, despite the fact it appears to have skewed much of Tolkien's original stories in the Second Age in favor of reflecting the world as it is today. Yeah, which is like they like to do this with a lot of IPs nowadays. They like to basically usurp them for their own narratives, for use them as a platform. And Alex Kurtzman, who's been running Star Trek, he actually said this explicitly, like that they're using Star Trek as a platform. Like, it's not even about Star Trek anymore. However, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I would wager the viewership will significantly nosedive as more and more episodes are released. And again, given that Nielsen tracks total minutes across all episodes for its streaming numbers, that would mean a significant portion of people tuning out rather than tuning in. Yeah, and then he just asked the question, what do you think of this report? And I want to know what you think, too. Do you think Amazon will engage in shenanigans to declare the series a victory, even if it is not? And we already know they're going to do this. Like, they always do this. You see these studios go on these attacks against fans saying that their shows or movies are being review bombed. You're seeing this in real time right now with She-Hulk. And you're going to see this with Amazon or Rings of Power. Like, any criticism they get, they'll just dismiss as either racism or sexism. Because that's the only fucking argument they have. And it doesn't hold any water anymore. Here's the first article that I came across that was like, yeah, this checks out. Because this is vaguely connected to Tolkien's work. In the trailer it says based on the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, but it really should say loosely based. The Lord of the Rings of Power showrunner Patrick McKay recently responded to a criticism that the Prime Video show is only vaguely connected to J.R.R. Tolkien's work. According to The Hollywood Reporter, a reporter described the series as vaguely connected while attending the series' Television Critic Association's press tour panel on Friday. McKay took issue with this description, addressing those in attendance, saying, "I just want to sort of quibble with the vaguely connected." He then explained why. We don't feel that way. See, what? Give us the receipts then. We feel like deep roots of this show are in the books and in Tolkien. And if we didn't feel that way, we'd all be terrified to sit up here. Yeah, but you're just talking about your feelings. You're not talking about the actual, like, facts, the stuff that Tolkien wrote down. Your feelings should not account for this at all. Instead of pointing to parts of Tolkien's works that are in the show, McKay continued to claim it's just his and Prime Video's feelings that make them believe the show is connected to Tolkien. Yeah, it's their interpretation of Tolkien and not actual Tolkien. And Tolkien would not want to see someone else's interpretation of his work even coming to screen. Like, Christopher, his son, did not even like the Peter Jackson movies just because it kind of deviated from the source material. You know, like Aragorn gets the sword a little late in the game whereas he actually in the books got it when they left Rivendell. You know, the broken sword. And then other things like Arwen being the one who staved off the ring raids when Frodo went to Rivendell. And then that was actually another character. Glorfindel, I want to say. Yeah. And then it's a lot of little things like that. And like and some stuff in the theatricals was cut out that were from the book and then put back in the extended version, or changed a little bit. Like well, see, they didn't put in the Scouring of the Shire, which is a big chapter at the end of the Lord of the Rings. But you do see that in Galadriel's mirror in the Fellowship of the Ring. You see a vision of that. We feel that this story isn't ours. It's a story we're stewarding that was here before us and was waiting in those books to be on Earth. We don't feel vaguely connected. We feel deeply, deeply connected to those folks and work every day to even be closer connected, McKay concluded. That's really how we think about it. It's a whole lot. It's a word sandwich, basically. He's not actually saying anything of relevance. Like, you feel that you're connected to Tolkien. Okay, prove it then. Because so far you haven't proven shit. Like, you've proven that you want to just take his work and make your own thing out of it. YouTuber Disparu, who I watch his stuff, and he's very good. He gets on rants, but he's actually very, like this guy says, succinct, and you understand where he's coming from, and he actually like uses facts instead of feelings to get his point across. He succinctly eviscerated McKay's comments, saying, "Your feelings." I'm gonna try to do a Disparu accent right now. "Your feelings are entirely irrelevant, and when the current speech about your feelings directly contradicts things that you've already said in the past, the only conclusion that's safe to come up with is that you're just lying to the audience or the journalists in this instance, and just hope they're going to swallow it and not confront you about it." He later adds, "The thing is the fact that you're just changing the base text. It's not even controversial." Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They're changing the base text. Like, the facts do not care about your feelings, like Ben Shapiro likes to say. McKay's fellow showrunner made it abundantly clear they are changing Tolkien's text when they decide to include hobbits in the Rings of Power. Tolkien made it abundantly clear in The Lord of the Rings and a number of his letters that hobbits do not do anything significant until the Third Age, when The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings takes place. And the Rings of Power showrunners are going to tell you that these aren't hobbits, these are Harfoots, but that's bullshit because Harfoots are hobbits. They're just a different kind of hobbit from the hobbits that we see in Lord of the Rings. It's like not even an offshoot. They're the same people, they just live in different places. As an example, he wrote in The Fellowship of the Ring, "The beginning of hobbits lies far back in the elder days when that are now lost and forgotten. Only the elves will still preserve any records of that vanished time, and their traditions are concerned almost entirely with their own history, in which when men seldom appear and hobbits are not mentioned at all." So yeah, hobbits would not have taken place in any of these conflicts at all. Like, if you had seen Harfoots taking place in these battles, doing anything of significance, you would have heard about it before. While they are including hobbits in the Second Age, McKay and Payne attempted to explain that they actually weren't. See? Payne told Hall H attendees at San Diego Comic-Con, "Well, it's actually technically not a Hobbit story, it's a Harfoot story. And so Tolkien doesn't say anything about Harfoots not having done anything amazing in the Second Age." See, they're using the argument that because Tolkien didn't say anything about it, that they can just put it in the show. So Tolkien didn't say that Galadriel wasn't a lesbian, a raging lesbian, and that she wasn't banging freaking her own stepdaughter and whatnot, her granddaughter. They didn't say she was incestuous, and they also didn't say that she was black. So like we can make her black if we want. Like they made Tar Miriel black just because. And you'll see that they also deviate from her character a lot. Like she was never actually a queen regent, a queen anything. She was usurped, before she could take her crown. Like, she was in line for the throne, but Farazan, made sure that she did not actually get the throne. So Tolkien doesn't say, tell a good. So we felt we had license there to tell a good Harfoot story. They wanted hobbits in this because they feel that Lord of the Rings needs hobbits, like no matter what era of Lord of the Rings you're telling. But it's Lord of the Rings only takes place during the Third Age, the story of Lord of the Rings. So you can't even say this is Lord of the Rings. Again, this contradicts Tolkien's works. In The Fellowship of the Ring, he wrote, "Before the crossing of the mountains, the hobbits had already become divided into three somewhat different breeds. Harfoots, Stores, and Falahites. They're still hobbits." The Harfoots were browner of skin, smaller and shorter, and they were beardless and bootless. Their hands and feet were neat and nimble, and they preferred highlands and hillside. See, you can have. See, this is where they might say, "Oh, any one of these creatures could be diverse," and by diverse they only mean like not white. Like diverse, the actual definition of diverse means of different kinds. But in their minds, the definition is just non-white. You can make Harfoots the darker skin because that's what he says, they're darker skin. But like they're with elves and dwarves, they're all basically the same. They're lighter skinned. Dwarves, we know because they live underground. Like it makes no sense for a dwarf to be dark skinned in this world. Because they all live underground. And then elves are described by Tolkien as fair skinned, which means fair skin. It's like Snow White. She's white. Her skin is white as snow. Not only are they including hobbits, but they are also changing the backstory of significant characters like Galadriel and Tar Miriel. Yeah, like I said. In numerous promotional images, trailers, and videos, Galadriel is depicted as a warrior leading men into battle. Tolkien never described her as such. And they'll use little, Amazon will use little snippets from the letters and whatnot to try to justify that by saying, like, she had the eyes of a commander, but a commander is not necessarily a commander on the field of battle. A commander could be a commander, like, in a council, which that's the role that Galadriel usually played on the White Council. She was like the head. Instead, the elves who lead the last alliance of elves and men, that's what we see at the beginning of Fellowship, against Sauron are Gil-galad and Elrond. So we'll see how much of a role Gil-galad actually plays in this. We see Elrond in the trailers, but shit, I don't even remember seeing Gil-galad in the trailer. Maybe, I don't know. Tolkien wrote, "Now Elendil and Gil-galad took counsel together, for they perceived that Sauron would grow too strong and would overcome all his enemies one by one if they did not unite against him. Therefore they made that league which is called the Last Alliance, and they marched east into Middle-earth, gathering a great host of elves and men, and they halted for a while at Imladris." Imladris is what the men call Rivendell. It was a stronghold and refuge founded by Elrond, the half-elven. And Elrond was clearly present in the siege of Mordor, with Tolkien writing, "The ruling ring passed out of the knowledge even of the wise in that age, yet it was not unmade, for Isildur would not surrender it to Elrond and Círdan, who stood by." Círdan is the shipwright who oversees the Grey Havens, the place that Gandalf and Frodo go to at the end of Return of the King. They counseled him to cast it into the fire of Uradruin, nigh at hand, that's Mount Doom, the fire is up in Mount Doom, in which it had been forged, so that it should perish, and the power of Sauron be forever diminished, and he should remain only as the shadow of malice in the wilderness. If Galadriel was such a warrior, wouldn't she have been on the front lines in the battle against Sauron at the end of the Second Age? Yeah, we definitely would have seen her there. Unless in this series that they try to tell us that she gives up the sword by the end of this conflict. I mean, that'd be their way of getting out of that incongruence. Because they want people to think that this is connected to the Tolkien trilogy, even though it's not. It's clearly not. Because they want people that are fans of those movies to go and watch this. Because they're not gonna win book fans the way they're deviating from the books. They want the normies. As for Tar Miriel, she is not the queen regent of Numenor as Rings of Power depicts her. Like I said, Tolkien writes in the Silmarillion, and it came to pass that Tar Palantir grew weary of grief and died. He had no son, but a daughter only, whom he named Miriel in the Elven tongue. And to her now by right in the laws of Númenóreans came the scepter. But Pharazôn, that's this guy, took her to wife against her will, doing evil in this, and evil also in that the laws of Númenor did not permit the marriage, even in the royal house, of those more nearly akin than cousins in the second degree. And when they were wedded, he seized the scepter into his own hand, taking the title of Ar-Pharazôn, Tarkalion in the Elven tongue, and the name of his queen he changed to Ar-Zimrafil. So I guess in this series, they're going to try and say that he took her as queen, but still let her be queen regent. Like, that completely changes his character too, because he was very much an asshole. After Ar-Pharazôn challenged the Valar and landed on their shores, Iluvatar reshaped Iluvatar is basically God in Tolkien's work. Iluvatar reshaped the world, sinking Númenor, and creating a massive tidal wave that took the life of Tar-Miriel. So we may see this in the series. They're probably going to cover everything, even though these events take place like thousands of years apart. Tolkien wrote, and last of all the mounting wave, green and cold, and plumed with foam, climbing over the land, took to its bosom Tar-Miriel the queen, fairer than silver or ivory or pearls. Too late she strove to ascend the steep ways of the Minaltarma to the holy place, for the waters overtook her, and her cry was lost in the roaring of the wind. Describing The Lord of the Rings of Power as vaguely connected to Tolkien's writing is giving the show more credit than it deserves because it's clearly undermining Tolkien's work, including characters that don't belong. And yeah, Isildur actually has a sister in this, which he doesn't in the in the books. They're just inserting new characters just to have more diversity. And radically altering characters in order to reflect what the world actually looks like, quote unquote. The show seemingly has nothing to do with Tolkien's actual writings other than the fact that they co-opted the name of Tolkien's books. Yeah, see, Bezos wanted his Game of Thrones, basically. So he decided to purchase this IP and just make some shit up, you know? Because all he actually bought was the right to the appendices that are in Return of the King, at the end of Return of the King. And they changed those. So what was the point, really? You could have just made your own fantasy series and gone with that, probably. Like you could still make it like this. Like you could have whatever color dwarves and elves you want, and nobody would complain because it's a fantasy series. But Tolkien's is a very specific fantasy series. Like this is as you'll see in this other article, very much a product of Tolkien wanting to make his own mythology for England. Like all they really had was like stories like Robin Hood, folklore, Robin Hood, King Arthur, and that kind of thing. But he wanted something. It's very much like the way George Lucas created Star Wars, was to give the modern times their own mythology. Tolkien had this same kind of mindset for England when he created Middle-earth. The Lord of the Rings of Power actress says casting isn't tokenization. Amazon's diversity and inclusion quota says otherwise. Yeah, a lot of these major studios have this kind of thing too. The Lord of the Rings of Power actress Nazanin Boniadi, I may have said that wrong, who plays the original character Bronwyn in the series, recently declared that the casting for the series isn't tokenization. By the way, Bronwyn sounds like a dude's name, but whatever. Nitpick. Boniadi spoke to Entertainment Weekly about the series, telling the outlet this was not stunt casting. Disregard that Burger King ad. She elaborated, this isn't tokenization, or a lot of the things that we're used to in past roles. In past roles, you're doing a lot more tokenization in current roles. Every person has been cast because they are the best people for those roles, regardless of ethnicity and race, and I find that super empowering. If that were so, this issue wouldn't even come up. First, this claim does not pass a small test. As YouTuber Just Some Guy, who's a black guy by the way, pointed out back in February, Middle-earth is basically northwestern Europe, mostly England. The native people of those areas are all white, so all the races of Middle-earth would be white, and we know that's true because Tolkien described what they look like. They are all white. This guy's a huge fan of Tolkien, by the way. Like, he is not on board with this show. He further added, the actors can be non-white, and if they can pass as European with or without makeup, they can play those characters. They just need to look the part. Casting non-white actors in a Middle-earth show is like casting white actors in a Black Panther movie. It makes no sense. Yes, because of the geographical location, the way they, they cut themselves off from the world, that's why there's all black people in there. It's an ethno-state. With Middle-earth, it's just that there were no black people yet, This is like his version of an old world. It's like I said, George Lucas said a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Only this is a real world, old times. So the idea that the people cast in the roles are the best ones for them falls on its face. As Just Some Guy points out, you wouldn't cast a white man to play Black Panther. No, you wouldn't. That'd be a faux pas. Not only does it fall on its face on that point, but Amazon Studios published their inclusion policy and playbook back in June 2021. Yeah, we'll get into that. Where they revealed they have racial quotas for their productions. Yeah. It must kill some of these people to know, or maybe they just lie to themselves and say, no, my race has nothing to do with why I was hired. No, the way I look has nothing to do with it. I think race, ethnicity should not play a part at all in if you're hired or not for something. Unless it's specific to a certain world, to a certain aesthetic. Like, okay, these characters are supposed to be fair-skinned, all right? So that means someone that's white, right? Okay, this character's black, so we need somebody who's black. It's the same both ways. Amazon Studios head Jennifer Psaki, yeah, it's Psaki, I think it's pronounced like Saki, touted the policy and playbook in a press release saying, with the establishment of our inclusion policy and inclusion playbook, Amazon Studios has committed itself to being a thought and action leader in the transformation of our industry. She added, we know how much work there is to be done to improve representation both on camera and behind the scenes, and it starts at home, with us. With clear directives and a commitment to accountability, these guides provide a path toward a more equitable future, both on and off camera. See, I don't know if they're lying to themselves about being a more equitable future. Equity means equality of outcome, regardless of your status or your drive or any of that. That's not a fair way to try and deal out equality. Like, equality should be what we're striving for. Equity is just you can give more to someone who's not trying as hard as somebody else, and they still get the same amount. Like, that's not fair. You'll see memes and shit like pointing this out, depicting this kind of hierarchy, and it does not jive. It's like communism in a nutshell. Specifically, the policy includes each film or series with a creative team of 3 or more people in above-the-line roles, directors, writers, producers, should ideally include a minimum 30% women and 30% members of an underrepresented racial ethnic group. This aspirational goal will increase to 50% by 2024. Like, I don't understand why they're making this a mandate. You should just be hiring people based on if they can do the job or not. Like, that's you're basically going against the non-discrimination rule that comes up in any job you go to. You'll see this shit plastered on the wall. Like he cannot be discriminated against, but based on race, ethnicity, gender, all that shit. And they're doing the antithesis to that, casting actors whose identity, gender identity, nationality, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability aligns with the character they will be playing. Like, whoa, what? You're just you're kind of going against the whole principle of acting. Like I think it was Ian McKellen that pointed this out. Like we're acting like we're pretending to be someone we're not. So like a straight person should be able to play a gay person and vice versa. It doesn't matter. You're acting. And then and they go against this too. Like they have men playing women. They got women playing men. They're trying to make the. It seems like they're trying to make the genders androgynous. Sometimes. Aiming to include one character from each of the following categories in speaking roles, with minimum 50% of these to be women. All right. LGBTQIA plus. How many fucking. Never mind. Person with a disability. Okay. And 3 regionally underrepresented race, ethnic, cultural groups. A single character can fulfill one or more of these identities. How did they go about? I want to know how they go about filling these quotas. Because you may have maybe it's going to be a very small percentage of people that have a disability, like that are in a wheelchair or whatever, that are blind, going for a role. So then you got to sift through. Okay, you got to sift through a lot of people that are just like, I don't want to say normal. They're just differently abled. Okay, I'll say. Okay, you got your people that are just trying to do the job, trying to get hired, and they're being overlooked, maybe because they're white, or because they I don't know. A lot of people are being overlooked for being white now. I've heard that. I've seen that. But to put all these requirements on somebody based on things that they can't really change, like that's fucked up. Seeking at least 3 bids from vendors or suppliers on productions, one of which must be from a woman-owned business and one from a minority-owned business. Pay equity across casting, behind the camera staff and crew, and for vendors and suppliers. So you're saying everybody's going to be making the same thing but doing different jobs? I don't know if that jives. Like, especially if somebody, has more responsibilities than somebody else. Like, yeah, just like a coffee boy making the same as somebody that's doing the cinematography, like, that's not right. And casting, you have, okay, a lot of times you'll have a top billing star, and they call it top billing because he's getting most of the money, usually. And they put his name first on the posters and shit. You'll have a bigger star than all the rest. That's why, like, you see Chris Pratt making more than Bryce Dallas Howard. It's not a sexism thing. It's he's a bigger star than her thing. The third bullet point makes it very clear that Prime Video does indeed have racial, gender, and even sexuality quotas. Yes, we've seen that. Not only did Amazon Studios detail these policies, but their inclusion documents are guided by the Amazon Studios DEI team, whose focus is diversity, diversity, equality, or inclusion? Something like that. Ensure diverse representation of talent. In front of and behind the camera, above and below the line. Yeah, diverse. Non-white. That should say right there. Non-white. And not straight. Dismantle long-standing barriers to success in the industry and inspect our processes so we do not create or perpetuate inequities. There's that word again. The barriers to success are ones that you put up yourself. Like, you see a lot of people that are more qualified for these jobs not getting these jobs just because these other people, I'm not saying all of them aren't qualified for their jobs. I'm saying some of them may only be there because they look a certain way. Let's be real. And tell inclusive narratives to reach a globally diverse audience. As if Tolkien wasn't a globally accepted brand, a globally loved fucking series. They're trying to act like it wasn't. Like they're gaslighting the fans right now, saying like, "Oh, people couldn't see themselves in this story, and you know, people couldn't relate to these characters." It's like you don't have to fucking actually see yourself, like see a white guy or see whatever, a black person, see a gay person in a story to relate to them. Didn't we all relate to fucking E.T.? Didn't we relate to man, I'm trying to think. Didn't we relate to the droids in Star Wars? Didn't we relate to the Ninja Turtles? None of us are fucking green. When Amazon Studios head Jennifer Saki first talked about Lord of the Rings of Power, this is what she said. As for how many people need to watch The Lord of the Rings, a lot. She laughed. A giant global audience needs to show up to it as appointment television, and we are pretty confident that that will happen. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people will be tuning in just to troll it, just to laugh at it. Bonniati can claim that the casting for the show isn't tokenized, but the fact that Tolkien's characters are white in his novels directly contradicts that. Yeah. I'm sorry. Some stories will only have white characters, some will only have black characters, some will have a mix of both of them. It's just a story. It doesn't fucking matter. But it does matter for this story because this story only has white characters. But see, they'll try to dismiss fans pointing this shit out. They'll call them racist, of course. We've seen that so many times. Any criticism of a story, they'll come up with these fucking straw man arguments. On top of that, Amazon Studios has made it very clear that they have tokenization policies in place for their productions, and The Lord of the Rings of Power is an Amazon Studios production. So yeah, first thing they do is mandate that we gotta have this many women in it, all right? Because we got enough men. We'll always have enough men, more than enough. Okay. So we gotta get a bunch of women to surround the men, all right? We gotta get some black people in here, all right? We gotta have one or two black people stand there with the men and the women. That's how these studios think. Like, they're the racist ones, not the fans. We just like to point out the hypocrisy and the gaslighting that goes on all the time. And until this comes out, this will be the last I talk about this because, man, this has just gotten me so frustrated, so mad. Because we could have gotten something great if Amazon gave a shit, you know. And I feel like this is gonna be a fart. If they had maybe tried to separate the timeline more, like, you know, actually be faithful a little bit to the lore, we might have gotten something great. Like maybe do the Fall of Numenor separately from the Last Alliance because that's like way separated. And the Forging of the Rings of Power also, that's separated from both of those. You know, you could have had 3 separate shows, Amazon. What are you doing? And meshing them all together like this. This is stupid. Retards. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. Thanks for watching.